probably spent a lot of money on your car. I know I did. This truck, for example, was a pretty penny. And we get behind the wheel of our vehicles every single day. But imagine getting behind the wheel of your fancy, expensive BMW. And before you've even driven away, having an advert play in your car, on your car's in-vehicle screen, advertising a movie that you may or may not have seen, and a vehicle that you may or may not want to buy. It was pushed to your vehicle over the air using the telematics system, and you didn't know it was going to happen until you turned your car on. How would you feel about that? And what can you do to make sure that it doesn't happen again? Before I get into today's video, I want to just acknowledge the air quality outside is really terrible due to the forest fires we're having here in Oregon and in neighboring Washington right now. I've got the air conditioning running a little bit more enthusiastically than I normally would when filming a video, and that's to try and keep the cabin air quality as good as possible. I'm also driving the truck because my wife is out in the Bolt. Otherwise I would have made this in the Bolt, but we're on our way to our mailbox to pick up some mail. So I figured this was as good a time as any because the topic of this discussion today is all about the in-car entertainment system that every modern EV has. And to be fair, every modern ICE vehicle has. So for those who don't know, over the weekend, BMW pushed what was effectively an over-the-air advertisement for the latest Disney Marvel Spider-Man film. And that upset a lot of people, quite rightly so. So the advert, as I understand it, I don't have a BMW, but as I understand it, the advert took up the infotainment screens inside the vehicle. After it had played, it presented a QR code that allowed people who wanted to find out more information to scan the QR code with their smartphone, and then, they were able to then find out more information about the film. Now, I want to talk about how that happened, why this is not a new thing, and how we as EV owners and car owners in general can try and minimize the risks of that happening. And, the first thing I want to say is it's not okay. BMW, it is not okay. Now, this is not the first time that BMW has courted controversy around in-car and connected car services. As some of you may know, BMW very famously tried to make people pay for heated seats via an over-the-air software update, or rather a subscription service. If you want to have heated seats, you're going to have to pay a monthly fee or we'll deactivate it. BMW kind of quickly went away from that, but it's tried similar tricks and ways of getting extra revenue, and a lot of people have sworn off BMW in the past because of it. And that's a shame because, when it comes to performance EVs, I think BMW's cars are really quite good in the space. I've not driven the new Neue Klasse versions of EVs yet, but I've heard they're really great. And in fact, this Spider-Man movie tie-in features the BMW iX3, which is proving incredibly popular across Europe. BMW, for whatever reason, decided that its owners who had already paid to buy the car, or at least lease it, were fair game and could easily be advertised to earn BMW extra revenue. And I would love to say that this is the first instance we've seen of this happening, but it really isn't. And I want to remind everybody that this is the start of a trend that I think is going to continue. I think it's going to become the new normal. And it's up to us as owners and advocates and customers to push back against companies when they do that. Now, I said that this wasn't the first case of this happening, and I should probably cover that first case that I'm aware of. And if you know of an earlier example, please let me know. So not so long ago, Tesla ran an advert for Tron Aries to its customers in a very similar way, and it elicited a very similar response. Yes, hardened Tesla fans, hardened gamers thought that it was fantastic, but I think the general population of Tesla owners were kind of put out that Tesla thought it was okay to start advertising directly to them when they got behind the wheel of a car. And when we talk about the amount of money that people spend on cars, especially EVs, that figure is going up. Sure, the average transaction price for cars is slowly falling in the EV space, but the overall average transaction price is ticking upwards. And that means that more people are basically pushing their financial limits to get behind the wheel of a new car, whether that is a lease or a purchase. And automakers are treating that as a captive audience that they can then sell to. It's just the same as, you know, when you buy a brand new smart TV today, be it from Samsung or any other brand, the chances are as soon as you plug that TV in, especially if you give it internet access through Ethernet or Wi-Fi, it's gonna start giving you adverts. And whatever the product, these are being rolled in as part of an appliance's over-the-air update, i.e. if you want to carry on using this product, you want to have the latest and greatest smart whatever features, you need to give us access to the internet so that we can, you know, serve you the latest security updates and software updates. And hidden within the terms and conditions, which I'll come to in a minute, are little clauses that allow everyone from automakers through to refrigerator companies to advertise to customers with very little in the way of repercussions for the company. So we've got BMW, we've got Tesla doing adverts for products or movies or games directly to customers in their vehicles. But this has also happened through maps. So not so long ago, Volkswagen got in trouble for advertising to customers through the connected vehicle service that provided mapping data to customers' cars. And again, it has led to a pretty big backlash, especially in Germany, where privacy is a big thing. And so I'm thinking that this is going to keep rolling out. And Ford, yeah, the company that makes the truck that I am driving right now, they not so long ago patented a way to serve adverts directly to people in their vehicles. But if you've spent any time watching our videos on Transport Evolved, particularly our car reviews, you'll know that it's becoming a normal thing for car companies to pester people to sign up for connected car services when they get behind the wheel. So a lot of the press cars we get don't have press accounts set up, and the cars that don't have press accounts set up, as soon as you turn the vehicle on, the first thing you see is a, hey, wouldn't you like to subscribe to this connected car service or to this particular, you know, system so that we can enhance your driving experience. And unlike, you know, an old-fashioned, no thanks, bugger off, these notifications, these please subscribe messages are very often perniciously persistent, and it can cause distraction to drivers, but it can also cause just a headache. You know, if you're trying to use a system and it says, oh, sorry, you can't do that until you do this, it's not really a system that you have control over. It's more a system that a marketing campaign has you by the short and curlies. And it's all part of the ongoing and shitification that we are seeing in the automotive sector, but also the wider world right now. You know, everything is for sale, including your eyeballs. And if you're buying a brand new vehicle, regardless of the manufacturer, you need to be aware that there will be tactics used to try and encourage you to sign up for services, so that maybe one day when you turn on your car, you'll get an advert for the latest Hollywood movie blockbuster. Maybe one day we'll see male impotency pills, you know, advertised. I mean, they're advertised every bloody other place I can think of. Which, by the way, I just want to call this out here as a European. When I grew up in the UK, it was very common to see adverts on television for feminine hygiene products. It was very rare to see products aimed at men who had downstairs issues. But here in the US, and I'm speaking this out loud now because I know that people are watching outside of the US who don't know that this is the thing, and people who live in the US who don't know that this is unusual for the rest of the world. So in the US, it is very rare to see feminine hygiene products advertised anywhere, and male virility products, pretty much every other ad break, along with an inordinate amount of adverts about golfing products. It is very strange, this timeline that we're living in right now. My sidetrack dealt with, let's get back on topic. And the topic of discussion here is, how can we make sure that we don't become victims of this ourselves? And the first thing is really, I hope, common sense. Do not sign any contracts without reading them first. When you buy a new car, there's a whole lot of extra stuff that you have to deal with. You have to deal with the financing, you have to deal with the registration, you have to deal with the insurance, you probably have to deal with your kids pestering you about how bored they are because buying a new car takes so long. And it's very easy in that kind of environment to be press ganged into just signing the contract and not actually reading it. But it is imperative that if you are buying a new car, you stop and you go through the paperwork and you read it. And if a salesperson doesn't want to give you that time to read through the contract, or get someone who is legally minded to read through the contract, do not sign it. Because embedded in a lot of these contracts are little things like, we can advertise to you, we can contact you, we can use your details for, you know, services and features that we think you might like. And those services and features traditionally might have been things like satellite radio or products that you might want to put on your car. But it's increasingly common to see things like this BMW tie-in lumped in as part of that. Oh, you drive an electric car. That probably means you're a nerd. Well, you'll want to watch the latest Spider-Man movie then. Additionally, you need to make sure that when you sign contracts and when you buy a new car, you're only giving away the information that you are comfortable giving away. And one thing you can do if you're unsure is to use a burner email address. They exist. Many email providers actually offer you the ability to have anonymous or burner email addresses associated with your main account. That means that you give your burner email address to someone, but it's in the back end associated with an actual email address that you want to keep. And so I know Apple does one, I think Google does one as well. And that email alias can be burned without getting rid of your actual email address. And that limits how much advertisers can get hold of your information. Same with phones. You know, if you're really not sure that giving your actual phone number is a good idea, use a Google Voice or some other software-based phone system to verify your phone number. There is no obligation to give somebody your phone number in many situations. Next, be wary when a dealer tells you, you must give us your information to activate your vehicle. That is not true. There is no reason that you need to give them your email address in order to buy a car. You can buy the car and drive it off the lot with none of the connected services connected. And if a dealership tells you otherwise, they are lying to you. Take it home, read the connected services agreement, take your time, and then when you are happy that all of those connected services agreements meet your approval, you can then go back and add the services that you want. Keeping your PII out of the reach of automakers and any advertisers that they may want to work with is a start, but it doesn't always solve the problem. And what you can do next does kind of depend on where you live. So different countries around the world have different rules over what car companies and advertisers can do with your data, how they can advertise to you, and what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. If you live in the US, for example, certain states have pretty much no rules at all, especially with the current US administration in power. Other states, California is a good example, has some pretty strong consumer protection rules and rules about opting out of advertised services. And look, I expect there to be court cases over this. After all, if you've purchased a vehicle, whether that is through a hire purchase scheme or outright, or whether you're leasing it, you have a right to not be advertised to, just as you have a right not to be advertised to by the company that made your smart TV. And of course, when it comes to smart TVs, if you have this as a problem, then a great way around it is to use something like Pi-hole, which is an open source software that you can run on a Raspberry Pi, or in fact in a Docker container on any computer, that can help eliminate advertisements to your home network. We have Pi-hole running in our house. We also have ad blocking on our network switch. And the resulting experience means that for the most part, I don't have to deal with adverts when I'm browsing the internet. And if I am away from home, whether it's at a hotel or at a friend's house, and I need to use the internet, I am reminded all too quickly how terrible normal internet experiences are. Now, of course, you can't as easily do Pi-hole restrictions on a vehicle you drive, because it'll have a data modem built into the vehicle, one that you may or may not be paying a subscription service fee to utilize. But opting out of those services is one way that you can make sure that you will not be advertised to. The other thing is to consider buying vehicles used rather than new. If you buy a used car on the used market, it's much harder for an automaker to get your data and advertise to you, especially if you don't take up any of the subscription services the vehicle's original owner had. And that can actually be a bonus. But there are other ways around this too. Once you've turned off any subscription services, you can also block your car from downloading updates when it's at home. I suspect most people with EVs that have Wi-Fi connectivity have at some point set up their vehicle to use their home network to download over-the-air software updates. And that can be a benefit, right? You can add functionality, and that's a great thing, but it's also the way that advertisers are gaining access to your vehicle and your eyeballs. So turn off automatic updates and wait. When a new update rolls out, make sure that you're part of a forum. Make sure that other people try it out before you do. Because if a dozen other people go, oh, this latest update adds over-the-air adverts, you probably don't want to update your software. And as many people say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Then, of course, there is the third-party options. So the OVMS system that I discussed a couple of weeks back, That allows me to gain access to telematics for my 2017 Chevrolet Bolt EV without giving GM any kind of connection to my vehicle or any right to my vehicle data. Of course, if you want to make sure that car companies are not reaching out to your vehicle, there is only one surefire way of doing that, but it will come with a potentially negative consequence, and that is deactivating or disconnecting the power to your telematics module. And some people do that. Some people go down to the fuse box, identify the fuse in their owner's manual that's connected to the telematics system and pulling the fuse. But if you do that, you will lose potentially other functionality that you want, like remote starting, locking and unlocking the vehicle from your smartphone, or perhaps even in vehicle navigation and potentially the radio. So that is something that you really should only do in the most extreme of situations. But really, honestly, the best way to counter this is through consumer rights organizations. Find your local consumer rights organization where you live. Reach out to them, explain your frustration, explain that you did not sign up for this when you bought a particular vehicle. Let them know that what car companies are doing to your vehicle and to your eyeballs is not okay. And write to your local elected officials, because I'm not a betting person, but if I were, I would bet a sizable amount of money that many of them don't know about this, don't know it's happening, and would be absolutely abhorred if they did. And by speaking out, by kicking up a fuss, by complaining, we have potentially a sliver of a chance that we can walk back from a future of Minority Report-esque advertisements where we get behind the wheel of our car and we're bombarded with adverts for things that we don't really want, that an AI system has decided we must have. That's it for today's video. Thank you for joining me today. If you thought this video was a good one, make sure you share it with other people and let me know in the down below, what is the most horrific example of an automaker stepping over the line with your rights as a customer that you know of? Let me know in the down below. And perhaps if you've got any tips or tricks that I've not covered, throw those down there as well. We here at Transport Evolved are 100% independent. We do not have advertorial messages that we sneak in as editorial content. And if we ever do work with an advertiser, we are very explicit about where the boundaries lie. And if you'd like to keep us 100% independent, you can do so from $1.50 a month by supporting us on Patreon. You can support us on YouTube, you can send us Ko-fi, you can even send us an old-fashioned check to the mailbox that I am now driving back from visiting. Make sure that you tell the important people in your life that they are important to you. Be kind. Thank you for being the positive change we need to see in the world. And until next time, keep evolving.